Chairs scraped back just enough to create distance. The grocery store aisle smelled of bleach and ripe bananas, sharp and ordinary, and somehow that made it worse. He felt it before he understood it. Eyes on his back. A tension that didn't belong to him, but had been assigned to him anyway. "Sir," a voice said, too loud, too practiced. "Can you step over here?" Marcus turned slowly. The store manager stood near the security desk, jaw tight, hands folded like he was about to pray or accuse, maybe both. A white woman hovered behind him, arms crossed, lips pressed thin, eyes already convinced. "I didn't take anything," Marcus said, calm by habit, heart knocking once against his ribs. The woman shook her head. "I saw him. He put it in his jacket." That was the moment. Pivot. The lie that landed clean because it was familiar. Marcus opened his jacket. Me. Receipt still warm in his hand. The manager didn't look. He was already dialing. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be," he said. Harder for who? When the police arrived, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead, merciless and bright. An officer glanced at Marcus, then at the woman, and nodded like the decision had been made before anyone spoke. As the cuffs closed around his wrists, the officer leaned in and said quietly, "If you'd just cooperated, this wouldn't have happened." Marcus looked through the glass doors at the parking lot, at his car, at his life still sitting where he left it, reachable but suddenly very far away. Then the cruiser door shut, and the world went dark. Marcus Reed went to the grocery store because he was out of coffee. That was it. No symbolism. No bad feeling in his gut. Just a list on his phone and 20 minutes before he needed to be home. He parked under a flickering light, grabbed a cart with a loose wheel, and walked inside thinking about emails he hadn't answered yet. The store smelled like disinfectant and overripe fruit. A weekday quiet hung in the air. Marcus moved aisle to aisle, nodding once at an older cashier he recognized. Normal. Ordinary. Safe, or so it felt. He was reaching for a bag of beans when he sensed it. That prickle between the shoulders, the instinct that came from experience, not paranoia. "Excuse me." He turned. A white woman stood a few feet away, eyes sharp, mouth already drawn tight. "Yes," Marcus said. "You need to put that back." He blinked. "Put what back?" She pointed at his jacket. "I saw you take it." A few heads turned. Cart stopped rolling. The air shifted. "I didn't take anything," Marcus said evenly. He opened his jacket. Empty pockets. His keys chimed softly, traitorous in their small sound. The woman shook her head. "Don't lie. I watched you." A man in a manager's vest appeared like he'd been summoned by the accusation itself. "Is there a problem here?" "She stole," the woman said, then corrected herself without apology. "He stole." Marcus looked at the manager. "Sir, I didn't." "You can check." The manager didn't meet his eyes. "Why don't we step over here?" They didn't step. They were guided. Security desk. A small crowd pretending not to watch. "I can show you my receipt," Marcus said. "I haven't even checked out yet." "We'll sort it out," the manager replied, already dialing his phone. "Sort what out?" Marcus asked. His voice stayed calm because he had learned that calm was safer than anger. "There's nothing to sort." The woman crossed her arms. People like him always say that. Marcus felt that land. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just heavy. 2 officers arrived 10 minutes later. One older, one younger. Both white. The older one listened to the manager, nodded, then turned to the woman. "You're sure?" he asked. "Yes," she said. 100%. The officer finally looked at Marcus. "What's your side?" "I didn't take anything," Marcus said. "There's no item missing. There's cameras." The younger officer shifted his weight. "Sir, if you cooperate, this can go easier." "I am cooperating," Marcus replied. "I'm telling you the truth." The older officer sighed like a tired parent. "Turn around." "Why?" Marcus asked. His heart began to race now. loud enough that he felt it in his throat. I haven't done anything. The cuffs were cold. The click final. As they walked him past the registers, Marcus caught his reflection in the freezer doors. Hands behind his back, face tight but controlled. He looked like someone else. Someone already labeled. Outside, the parking lot was bright, indifferent. The woman walked past him without a glance. In the cruiser, the older officer filled out paperwork. If you'd just listened, he said, not unkindly, this wouldn't have happened. Marcus stared straight ahead, jaw locked, the truth pressing uselessly against his teeth. At the station they took his belt, his phone. His name became a number on a form. Sitting alone on a bench, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, Marcus finally understood what this was. Not a mistake, a system in motion. And once it started, it didn't stop just because you were innocent. The holding cell smelled like metal, sweat, and something sour Marcus couldn't name. He sat on a cold bench bolted to the wall, hands resting on his knees because there was nowhere else to put them. The cuffs were gone, but the pressure hadn't left his wrists. A clock ticked somewhere out of sight, too loud, like it wanted to be heard. A man across from him laughed softly. First time. Marcus looked up. The man was black, maybe late 40s, eyes tired but alert. Yeah, Marcus said. The man nodded like he already knew. You can tell. You still look surprised. Marcus swallowed. They said it was shoplifting. The man leaned back. That's how it starts. A guard walked past, keys clanking. Eyes forward, he said, not looking at anyone. Marcus stared at the floor until the footsteps faded. They gonna let me explain? Marcus asked. The man snorted. Explain what? You think this is about explanation? Marcus didn't answer. He didn't have one. Another man in the corner spoke up. They already wrote the story, he said. You just showed up in it. Hours blurred. Paperwork. Fingerprints pressed hard enough to hurt. A mugshot taken under buzzing lights that made Marcus look harsher than he felt. No one asked him what actually happened. They asked how tall he was, how much he weighed, whether he'd ever been arrested before. When he said no, the officer raised an eyebrow. Everyone says that. Marcus clenched his jaw. In a narrow hallway, an officer slid a phone toward him. One call. Marcus dialed his sister's number from memory. His fingers shook. Hello. Denise answered, breathless. It's me, Marcus said. His voice cracked despite himself. He hated that. I'm at the county jail. Silence. Then, what? They arrested me. Grocery store. False accusation. Are you okay? She asked quickly. I think so. Think so. Her voice sharpened. Marcus, what does that mean? They didn't hurt me, he said. Not physically. Denise exhaled hard. I'm coming. You can't. I'm coming, she repeated. Don't argue. The line went dead. Back in the cell, the older man watched Marcus carefully. Someone coming for you. My sister. Good, he said. Don't do this alone. Marcus leaned back against the wall. His head throbbed. A young guard stopped outside the bars. Read. Marcus stood. You're being charged with misdemeanor theft, the guard said. Bail hearing in the morning. I didn't steal anything, Marcus said. The guard shrugged. That's for the court. What about the footage? Marcus asked. The cameras. The guard looked past him. Not my department. Later, when the lights dimmed but never turned off, Marcus lay on the bench, arms crossed over his chest. Every sound felt amplified. Someone coughing. Someone crying softly. Someone praying under their breath. He thought about work. About the meeting he was supposed to lead tomorrow. About the email he hadn't sent. About how easily a story had replaced his life. In the morning, Denise stood on the other side of the glass, eyes red but fierce. They're saying you fit the description, she said. What description? Marcus laughed once, bitter. That's the question. A public defender introduced herself quickly, already glancing at another file. "We'll try for bail," she said. "But the complainant seems credible." "Credible how?" Denise snapped. The lawyer hesitated. She was confident. Marcus closed his eyes. When the judge appeared on the screen, his voice was flat, efficient. "Mr. Reed," he said, barely glancing up, "you are charged as follows." Marcus listened as his name detached from him, floated somewhere above the room, became something the system could move around without asking. Bail was set. High enough to hurt. Low enough to pretend it was fair. As they led him away, Marcus looked back at Denise. "This isn't over," she said, pressing her hand to the glass. Marcus nodded. But as the door closed behind him, one thought followed, cold and steady. They didn't need to prove he was guilty. They just needed him to survive being accused. The courtroom smelled like old paper and cleaner that couldn't quite hide it. Marcus sat beside Denise on a hard wooden bench, his knee bouncing despite his effort to keep still. The room was already filling. Lawyers in dark suits, a few families, a bored clerk flipping through files like they were menus. No one looked at him for long. When they did, their eyes slid away quickly, as if he were contagious. The public defender, Ms. Holloway, leaned in. "I've reviewed the complaint," she said, voice low, practiced. "The prosecutor is pursuing the charge." "For shoplifting?" Denise asked. "For theft," Holloway corrected gently. "They're framing it as intent." Marcus stared at the seal behind the judge's chair. Intent to steal what? There was nothing missing. "The complainant states she saw you conceal merchandise," Holloway said. "The store corroborates her statement." "How?" Marcus asked. "With what?" Holloway hesitated. "With her certainty." Denise let out a short laugh. "That's not evidence." "In theory," Holloway said. "But certainty carries weight." The prosecutor approached their table before the hearing began. He was young, hair neat, smile polite in a way that felt transactional. "Mr. Reed," he said. "I'm Assistant District Attorney Collins." Marcus nodded. "I didn't steal anything." Collins smiled again. "That's what trials are for." Denise crossed her arms. "Do you have the footage?" Collins glanced at Holloway. "The store is still reviewing it." "So you charged him without reviewing it?" Denise demanded. "We charged him based on witness testimony," Collins replied evenly. "Which is standard." Marcus leaned forward. "She lied." Collins's smile thinned. She was confident. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The room snapped to attention. Marcus listened as names were called. Cases disposed of in minutes. Pleas entered. Bail modified. Lives adjusted in increments. "Marcus Reed," the clerk finally called. Marcus stood. His legs felt heavy. The judge looked down at the file. "Mr. Reed, you are charged with misdemeanor theft under." "I'm innocent," Marcus said before he could stop himself. The judge's eyes flicked up. "You'll have an opportunity to address that later. For now, how do you plead?" "Not guilty," Holloway said quickly. The judge nodded. "Very well. Prosecution." Collins stood. The complainant observed the defendant conceal merchandise in his jacket and alerted store management. The defendant became evasive. Police responded appropriately. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Defense?" the judge asked. Holloway cleared her throat. "There is no physical evidence. No merchandise was recovered. Surveillance footage has not been produced." The judge tapped his pen. "Yet." He looked at Marcus again. "Mr. Reed, do you have employment?" "Yes," Marcus said. "I work in logistics." "Still employed?" Marcus hesitated. "I'm on leave." The judge nodded as if that answered something important. "We'll set a pre-trial conference in 30 days, he said. "Conditions remain. Do not leave the state." The gavel came down. Final. Outside the courtroom, Denise paced. "This is insane," she said. "They're just moving him along." Holloway gathered her papers. The system assumes momentum, she said. Stopping it takes time. And money, Denise added. Holloway met her eyes. Yes. On the courthouse steps, a reporter stood with a camera. Marcus froze. Marcus Reed, the reporter called. Can you comment on the charges? No, Denise snapped, stepping in front of him. That evening, Marcus sat on his couch, lights off, television flickering. His name appeared in a local news churn. Man charged after grocery store theft incident. The anchor's voice was neutral. The image was not. His mugshot stared back at him, flat and unforgiving. They didn't even say alleged, Marcus murmured. Denise shut the TV off. They never do at first. His phone buzzed. A message from his supervisor. We'll need to discuss next steps. Char will be in touch. Marcus stared at the screen until it dimmed. Later, alone in bed, he replayed the prosecutor's words. She was confident. He understood then how little truth mattered once a story settled into place. How confidence could substitute for fact. How a system built on discretion could turn feeling into force. He thought about the woman in the store. About the way she'd crossed her arms, already certain of who he was. Marcus rolled onto his side, eyes open, heart racing. They hadn't proven he did anything wrong. But they had charged him anyway. And in that space, between accusation and truth, everything he was could be taken apart. One hearing at a time. Marcus learned quickly that freedom on bail didn't feel like freedom at all. The ankle monitor wasn't required, but the conditions lived in his head anyway. Don't leave the county, don't miss a call, don't do anything that could be misread. Every movement felt supervised, even alone in his apartment. The walls seemed closer, the windows louder. On his first morning back home, he woke before dawn, heart pounding like he'd overslept for something important. For a moment he forgot. Then the memory rushed in, hot and sharp, the cuffs, the courtroom, the mugshot floating on the evening news. He sat up and pressed his palms to his face. The phone buzzed on the nightstand. HR department flashed on the screen. Marcus let it ring out. Later at the coffee table, Denise spread papers like they were evidence in a trial only she could see. They can't just put you on leave indefinitely, she said. That's not how this works. Marcus stared at the wall. It is when they're scared. Scared of what? Of headlines, he said. Of risk. Of me. Denise exhaled sharply. You didn't do anything. I know. He softened. Then we fight. Marcus nodded, but the word fight landed heavy. Fighting meant being visible. Being visible had already cost him. Outside, neighbors passed with polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes. A man he used to chat with about basketball suddenly found reasons to cross the street. A woman in the elevator clutched her purse a little tighter, just for a second, long enough for Marcus to notice. At the corner store, the cashier watched his hands as he paid. You need a bag, she asked. Yes, Marcus said quietly. At night, sleep came in fragments. He dreamed of standing in line while people whispered behind him, their voices rising until he couldn't hear his own. He woke drenched in sweat, chest tight, lungs working too hard for a quiet room. One afternoon, he met his friend Caleb for lunch. They'd known each other since college. Caleb talked too fast, eyes darting around the restaurant. Man, this is crazy, Caleb said. I mean, I know you. Just what? Marcus asked. Caleb hesitated. It's a bad situation. That's one way to put it. You'll beat it, Caleb said quickly. These things happen. Marcus laughed once, humorless. To who? Caleb shifted. I mean, yeah. The conversation drifted. Weather, sports, anything but the thing sitting between them. When they stood to leave, Caleb clapped Marcus on the shoulder. Keep your head down, he said. It'll blow over. Marcus watched him walk away, thinking how easy it was to give advice when it wasn't your life being paused. Weeks passed. The pretrial conference loomed. Elaine Carter's name came up in a late-night search Denise insisted on doing. Civil rights attorney, Small firm, sharp reputation. She's expensive, Marcus said. She's necessary, Denise replied. Elaine listened more than she spoke when they met. Mid-40s, steady eyes, voice calm but precise. Tell me everything, she said. Marcus did. Vile. The accusation. The certainty. Elaine nodded. Did the store provide footage? No, Marcus said. Did anyone else accuse you? No. Elaine folded her hands. Then this isn't about evidence. It's about comfort. Comfort for who? Denise asked. For the system, Elaine replied. For the story it prefers. She leaned toward Marcus. You need to understand something. This waiting. It's pressure. They hope you'll take a plea just to end it. Marcus felt his chest tighten. I won't. Elaine studied him. That choice has consequences. So does pleading guilty to something I didn't do. She nodded once. Good answer. After Elaine left, Marcus stood at the window watching cars pass. Life moving uninterrupted. Sometimes I wish I'd just gone to another store, he said quietly. Denise looked at him. You can't think like that. But I do, Marcus said. All the time. Like I triggered something just by existing in the wrong place. She walked over, put a hand on his arm. You didn't cause this. I know, he said. Then softer. But I'm the one paying for it. That night, another message came from work. Position under review pending resolution. Marcus deleted it without replying. He lay in the dark, listening to the city breathe, feeling the weight of days stretching ahead. Waiting for a system that moved slowly when it wanted to, and fast when it decided you were already guilty. Tomorrow he would wake up and do it again. Prove himself worthy of a truth no one had bothered to verify. And somewhere in that waiting, he wondered how much of himself would still be intact when it was over. Elaine Carter didn't rush. That was the first thing Marcus noticed when he sat across from her again, this time in her office. A narrow space lined with folders, framed verdicts, and a single window that looked out on an alley. She read quietly, page after page, the only sound the soft click of her pen. Denise shifted in her chair. So, Elaine looked up. I asked for incident reports from the store. Not just yours. Marcus leaned forward. Why? Because patterns don't announce themselves, Elaine said. They repeat. She slid a folder across the desk. 3 names were highlighted. All black. All accused of theft at the same store within 18 months. All cases dismissed before trial. Marcus stared. Why dismissed? Insufficient evidence, Elaine said. Footage missing. Witness accounts, unclear. Denise's mouth fell open. Then why did they charge them? Elaine didn't hesitate. Because charging is cheap. Accountability isn't. Marcus felt something settle in his chest. Anger, yes, but also a cold clarity. So they knew. They didn't need to know, Elaine replied. They needed to feel justified. She tapped the folder. In 2 of these cases, the same assistant manager signed the incident report. The one from my arrest? Marcus asked. Elaine nodded. Can we get the footage? Denise asked. Elaine smiled thinly. We can subpoena it. A week later, they sat in a conference room across from the store's corporate attorney. The man spoke smoothly, hands folded like the manager had, voice trained to de-escalate without conceding. The footage was automatically overwritten, he said. Our system retains video for 30 days. Elaine raised an eyebrow. My client was charged within 48 hours. The request for footage went out the same week. The attorney smiled. Unfortunate timing. Marcus clenched his fists under the table. Isn't it company policy, Elaine continued, to preserve footage related to alleged crimes? In certain circumstances, the attorney replied. And this wasn't one. The attorney glanced at Marcus, then away. The complainant was credible. Elaine closed her notebook. We'll let the court decide that. Outside, Denise exhaled hard. They think they can just erase it. They often can, Elaine said. But erasing footage doesn't erase patterns. The pretrial hearing was crowded this time. A few people sat in the gallery. Activists Elaine had quietly contacted, a reporter with a notebook, 2 interns from her firm. The prosecutor looked less relaxed. Elaine stood. Your Honor, the defense submits evidence of prior similar accusations at the same location involving black men. None substantiated, all dismissed. The judge frowned. Is this relevant? Yes, Elaine said. It establishes selective enforcement and credibility issues with the complainant and store. The prosecutor objected. Speculative. Elaine's voice didn't rise. Documented. The judge leaned back. I'll allow it for consideration. Marcus felt Denise grip his arm. After the hearing, the reporter approached. Mr. Reed, she said. Do you believe this was racial profiling? Marcus hesitated. Elaine met his eyes, gave a small nod. I believe, Marcus said carefully, that some people are believed faster than others. And that belief can ruin lives. That night Marcus scrolled through articles. One mentioned him by name. Another mentioned the store. Comments piled up beneath them. Some supportive, others sharp and dismissive. If he didn't do anything, why was he arrested? People play the race card too fast. Marcus closed the laptop. He sat in silence, thinking about the men whose names he'd seen in that folder. Men who'd disappeared from the system without apology. Men who'd paid quietly and moved on because fighting cost too much. Denise broke the silence. You okay? I keep thinking about them, Marcus said. About how easy it would have been for me to just disappear too. But you didn't, she said. No, Marcus replied. Because this time someone looked. The next morning Elaine called. They've offered a plea, she said. Reduced charge. Probation. No jail. Marcus laughed, a short, incredulous sound. For something I didn't do. They're nervous, Elaine said. That's good. It means pressure is working. What happens if I say no? Elaine didn't sugarcoat it. They might dig in. Or they might fold. Marcus looked out the window at the city waking up. People walking to jobs he wasn't sure he still had. I'm not pleading, he said. Not for their convenience. Elaine smiled. Then we keep going. When the call ended, Marcus felt the weight again, but now it was different. Sharper. Purposeful. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about a pattern that thrived in silence. And silence finally was breaking. The courtroom felt smaller this time. Not physically, nothing had changed, but the air was tighter, charged with attention. More people filled the benches. A local blogger sat beside the reporter Marcus recognized. Fingers flying across a keyboard. Elaine's interns occupied the back row. Notebooks open, eyes sharp. Marcus sat straight, hands folded, expression neutral. He had learned how much his face mattered. The judge entered without ceremony. Let's proceed. Assistant District Attorney Collins stood. Confidence carefully restored. The state maintains that the defendant's behavior was consistent with intent to steal, he said. The complainant's testimony remains clear and unwavering. Elaine rose slowly. Clarity is not accuracy, she said. The judge raised an eyebrow. Counsel. Elaine turned slightly, voice calm but edged. The state has still not produced surveillance footage. The store claims it no longer exists. That has been addressed, Collins said. The footage was overwritten. Elaine nodded. Conveniently. Objection, Collins snapped. Sustained, the judge said. But noted. Marcus felt a small jolt of hope. Elaine continued. Your Honor, I request dismissal based on lack of evidence and demonstrated pattern of unsubstantiated accusations at this location. The judge leaned forward. Dismissal is premature. Then discovery, Elaine replied. Full records. Internal communications. Incident reports. Collins hesitated for the first time. That's excessive. Elaine didn't look at him. Transparency often feels excessive to those unaccustomed to it. A murmur rippled through the gallery. The judge tapped his pen. "Discovery granted," he said finally. "Limited scope." Collins exhaled slowly. "Your Honor." "Limited," the judge repeated. "But granted." Outside the courtroom, Collins pulled Elaine aside. "You're turning this into a circus." Elaine met his gaze. "No. I'm turning the lights on." Collins glanced at Marcus. "You're doing your client a disservice. He could walk away today. With a record," Elaine said. "And with your version of events intact." Collins lowered his voice. "Juries believe confidence. They believe order." Elaine smiled faintly. "They also believe video." That afternoon, Marcus sat alone in Elaine's office while she reviewed documents newly released under subpoena. Emails, incident logs. She stopped reading. "Marcus," she said, "come here." He stood heart-pounding. Elaine turned the screen toward him. An internal email from the store's regional manager read, "We need to be careful about repeat incidents. Optics are becoming an issue. Law enforcement cooperation remains effective." Marcus swallowed. "Optics. They're aware," Elaine said quietly. "They just don't care." Denise, reading over Elaine's shoulder, whispered, "That's not even subtle." Elaine nodded. "It's worse than subtle. It's normalized." The next hearing came faster than expected. The courtroom was packed now. A cameraman stood in the aisle until a bailiff forced him back. Elaine called her first witness, the store's assistant manager. He shifted in the chair, eyes darting. "Is it standard practice," Elaine asked, "to call police without confirming theft?" "We rely on customer reports," he said. "Even when no item is missing." "Yes. Even when footage exists." The manager hesitated. "Sometimes." Elaine leaned in. "Isn't it true that you've filed similar reports before?" Collins objected. "Overruled." The manager's voice dropped. "I don't recall." Elaine held up a document. "You signed this." Silence. In the gallery, someone whispered, "Wow." Marcus watched, a strange calm settling over him. This wasn't vindication yet, but it was exposure. When Elaine rested, Collins stood jaw tight. "The state renews its offer," he said. "Plea to disorderly conduct. Time served." The judge looked at Marcus. "Mr. Reed, this is a favorable resolution." Marcus stood. "No," he said. The word echoed louder than he expected. The judge studied him. "You understand the risk?" "Yes," Marcus replied. His voice was steady now. "But I also understand what accepting that would mean." "And what is that?" the judge asked. Marcus looked around the room, at the reporters, at Denise, at Elaine. "It would mean agreeing that what happened to me was reasonable," he said. "And it wasn't." The judge leaned back. "Very well." That night, Marcus stood on his balcony, city lights blinking below. His phone buzzed with messages, some supportive, some hateful, some warning him to stop. Denise joined him. "You scared?" "Yes," Marcus said honestly. "Me too," she said. "But I'm proud of you." He nodded, breathing in the cool air. The system had expected compliance. Silence. Fatigue. Instead, it was being forced to perform under scrutiny. And for the first time since the grocery store aisle, Marcus felt something close to balance. Not justice, but the possibility of it. The footage arrived on a Thursday. Not the store's. Corporate maintained it was gone, but body camera video from one of the responding officers. Elaine received it just after noon. She didn't call Marcus right away. She watched it twice first, alone in her office, the blinds half closed, the city humming below. Then she dialed. "Come in," she said. "Now." Marcus and Denise sat shoulder to shoulder as the video played on the monitor. Dial. The woman's pointed finger. The manager's folded hands. The officer's posture changing the moment Marcus spoke. The camera caught everything except the theft that never happened. At one point, the younger officer said, "We can check the cameras." The older one replied, "No need." Elaine paused the video. "That," she said, tapping the screen, "is discretion." Marcus stared at his own face on the monitor. Calm, controlled, already dismissed. They decided before they looked. "Yes," Elaine said. "And now we show everyone." She filed an emergency motion. By evening, the reporter Marcus recognized had the clip. By morning it was everywhere. The headline read, "Body cam raises questions in grocery store arrest." Questions. Marcus laughed bitterly when he saw it. At the courthouse, the mood had shifted. Collins avoided eye contact. The judge's jaw tightened as Elaine played the video in open court. "Pause it there," the judge said. The room froze on the frame of the officer turning Marcus around. Hands not yet cuffed. "Why was he detained at this moment?" the judge asked. Collins cleared his throat. "Officer safety." "From what?" the judge asked. Silence. Lane stood. "Your Honor, the video shows my client complying fully. There is no probable cause demonstrated before the arrest." The judge nodded slowly. "I see that." In the gallery, a murmur rippled. Approval, anger, disbelief braided together. Side microphones waited. "Mr. Reed," a reporter called, "how does it feel to be vindicated?" Marcus stopped. "I'm not vindicated," he said. "I'm still here." That afternoon, the woman from the store issued a statement through a lawyer. "I felt threatened. I acted in good faith." The store followed with its own. "We regret any distress caused. We are reviewing our procedures." Marcus read both and felt nothing. Regret was easy when it cost nothing. Elaine called late. "The state is moving to dismiss." "How?" Marcus asked. "With prejudice," she said. "They don't want this tested further." Marcus closed his eyes. Relief washed in, then receded, leaving a hollow behind. "So that's it. For the criminal case," Elaine replied. "The rest is choice." At the dismissal hearing, the judge's voice was formal. "In light of new evidence, the charges against Mr. Reed are dismissed." The gavel fell. Clean. Final. Denise squeezed Marcus's hand. He stood there a moment longer than necessary, as if waiting for something else to happen. An apology. An explanation. Anything. Nothing came. Outside, the cameras pressed closer than ever. "Do you forgive them?" someone asked. Marcus thought of the men in the folder. Of the overwritten footage. Of the email about optics. "I'm not interested in forgiveness," he said. "I'm interested in change." That night, Marcus went back to the grocery store. Not to shop, just to stand in the aisle. The fluorescent lights hummed the same. The bananas still smelled ripe. A new assistant manager pretended not to recognize him. Marcus turned and walked out. Emails arrived over the next days. Supporters. Strangers. Few threats. His employer sent a careful message. "We're pleased to see the charges dismissed." No apology. No reinstatement. Just an invitation to discuss options. Elaine met with him again. Papers spread across her desk. "We have grounds for a civil case," she said. "Unlawful detention. Discrimination. Failure to preserve evidence." "What happens to them?" Marcus asked. Elaine didn't flinch. "Discovery. Depositions. Sunlight. And me." "You tell the truth," she said. Again. Marcus nodded. He was tired but not done. That evening he watched the news. The clip played again. This time commentators debated policy. Training. Biz. The word systemic surfaced, tentative but present. Marcus muted the sound. He stood by the window, city lights blinking, and felt the cost settle in. Sleep lost, trust eroded, a life briefly unmoored. Exposure had brought dismissal, but it hadn't returned what was taken. Still, the lie no longer lived alone. It had been dragged into the open, where it had to answer questions it couldn't outrun. And for the first time, Marcus felt something shift. Not inside him but around him. The story was no longer just about an accusation. It was about what the system did when someone refused to disappear. The charges were gone, but the silence stayed. Marcus learned that first, standing in his apartment on a Tuesday morning with nowhere to be. No court date, no check-ins, just time, wide and empty, like a room after furniture had been removed. He called his job again. HR answered with the same careful voice. "We're still reviewing the situation," the representative said. "We have to consider reputational impact." "The charges were dismissed," Marcus replied. "Yes," she said. "But the incident occurred." He hung up before his voice could betray him. Denise found him later, sitting on the couch in the dark. "They called me," she said quietly. "What did they say?" "That they're restructuring." He paused. "They're letting you go." Marcus nodded once. He had already known. Loss had a sound now. A soft administrative click. Elaine filed the civil suit the following week. The paperwork was thick. The language precise. Names were listed. Store management, corporate oversight, the city. No individual villain. Just a chain of decisions. "This part won't be fast," Elaine warned. "And it won't feel like vindication." "What will it feel like?" Marcus asked. "Work," she said. "And memory." The depositions began. Marcus sat across from people who spoke about him as if he weren't there. "The suspect appeared nervous," one officer said. "Define nervous," Elaine asked. "He avoided eye contact." Marcus stared straight ahead. The woman from the store testified by video. She looked smaller on screen. Defensive. "I felt unsafe," she said. "Why?" Elaine asked. "He was there," the woman replied. Elaine let the silence stretch. "Was he aggressive?" "No." "Did he threaten you?" "No." "Did he take anything?" "I believed he did." Elaine nodded. Belief noted. Afterward, Marcus sat in his car, hands on the wheel, breathing slowly. Each session took something from him. Energy, patience, the illusion that dismissal meant closure. Night sleep came harder. He startled at sounds. He replayed conversations, edited his own words in his head, wondered if different phrasing could have saved him months ago. One evening, Denise asked, "Do you regret fighting?" Marcus thought carefully. "No," he said. "But I didn't know how much it would take." A settlement offer came. Significant. Quiet. No admission of wrongdoing. Elaine laid it out. "You could walk away now." Marcus stared at the number. It would cover lost wages. Therapy. "And them?" he asked. Elaine was honest. "They'd call it a business decision." Marcus closed the folder. "I don't want quiet." The mediation room was windowless. Corporate lawyers spoke about efficiency, about moving forward. Marcus listened, then leaned toward the microphone. "You keep saying incident," he said. "Like it was weather. Like it just happened." One lawyer smiled thinly. "We understand this was difficult." "No," Marcus replied. "You understand it was inconvenient." The room stilled. In the end they settled with terms attached. Policy changes. Training requirements. Footage retention rules. Not justice exactly, but friction added to a machine that preferred ease. When it was over, Elaine shook Marcus's hand. "You did more than most." Marcus smiled faintly. "I survived." Public speaking invitations came. Annals. Community forums. Marcus said yes to some, no to others. Each time he told the story, it landed differently. Sometimes people listened. Sometimes they nodded without hearing. After one event, a young man approached him. "This happened to my brother," he said. "We didn't fight." Marcus nodded. "I get that. You think it matters?" the man asked. Marcus thought of the email. The video. The judge's pause. "It mattered to me," he said. "That's all I can promise." Months later, Marcus stood in the same grocery store aisle again, this time with a cart. He picked up coffee. Walked out without incident. Outside he paused, sunlight warm on his face. The cost was real. He carried it daily, in his chest, in his sleep, in the way he scanned rooms. But he also carried something else now. Proof. That silence wasn't the only option. That the system resisted but it bent. And that even when it didn't heal you, telling the truth could still leave a mark, one that made the next lie harder to tell. The first thing Marcus noticed was how quiet it became when the story ended. Not applause, there was some of that, but the silence afterward, when people didn't know what to say once the narrative stopped moving. Once there was no courtroom, no footage, no headline to point at. Just a man standing at a podium, alive, intact, altered. He stepped down to polite handshakes and careful praise. Powerful, someone said. Important work, said another. Marcus thanked them all, then went outside and sat on the steps, the night air cool against his skin. Denise joined him, handing over a bottle of water. You did good, she said. I told the truth, Marcus replied. That's harder. The civil case closed quietly a month later. The store announced new procedures. The city issued a statement about renewed commitment. The officers involved were reassigned. No one was fired. No one apologized directly. Marcus wasn't surprised. He started therapy. Not because anyone told him to, because his body kept remembering things his mind wanted to forget. The sound of keys. Fluorescent lights. The word cooperate. You don't need to be over it, the therapist told him. You need to live with it. Some days he could. Some days he couldn't. Work came back slowly, differently. Contract position. Fewer meetings. Less visibility. He learned how fragile stability was. How easily it could be negotiated away by people who never had to feel its absence. One afternoon, he received an email from a man named Terence, one of the names from the folder Elaine had shown him. I saw your interview, the message read. I thought I was the only one. They met for coffee, talked for hours, compared notes, compared scars. There was relief in recognition, and grief too. For the years Terence had spent thinking he'd imagined it all. It changes how you see yourself, Terence said. Like you're always on trial. Marcus nodded. Even when you win. As summer faded, Marcus returned to the courthouse, not as a defendant but as an observer. Elaine was arguing another case. Different name. Familiar shape. He sat in the back and watched the system work. Slowly, imperfectly, predictably. He understood it better now. Not as an abstraction, but as a series of choices made by people who would never call themselves villains. Afterward, Elaine joined him in the hallway. You didn't have to come. I know, Marcus said. I wanted to. She studied him. You okay? Marcus considered the question honestly. I'm learning what okay means. That night, he walked through his neighborhood, past houses glowing with ordinary lives. Police cruiser rolled by. Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest, but it passed. He kept walking. At home, he opened a notebook and began to write. Not speeches, not statements. Just fragments, moments, lines he wished he'd said. Things he needed to remember. He wrote about the aisle. Handcuffs. Bodycam. The email that said optics. He wrote about Denise's hand on the glass. Elaine's quiet certainty. The judge's pause. He wrote about what it cost. And what it gave. Months later, a community group asked him to help draft a local policy proposal. Nothing dramatic. Just language. Safeguards. Requirements. Marcus agreed. Change, he learned, didn't arrive with a gavel or a headline. It arrived in margins. In footnotes. In rules that made the next harm slightly harder to excuse. On the anniversary of the arrest, Marcus went back to the grocery store one last time. He bought coffee. He paid. He left. In the parking lot he stopped and looked around. Nothing happened. That, he realized, was the point. The system hadn't transformed. It hadn't redeemed itself. But it had been forced, briefly, uncomfortably, to see him. To record him accurately. To fail less quietly. Marcus got into his car and drove home. What remained was not victory. It was resilience, memory, and the refusal to disappear.